Hi, welcome to my kitchen. I'm Rachel Davison, and today my son John and I are going to show you how to make an apple tarte tatin. So a tarte tatin is a really classic French dish. It's not something that I grew up eating, but I've fallen in love with it recently. So what it is basically an upside down pie. So I'll show you how to make it. The main thing that you want when you're picking your fruit, the main thing you're looking for is an apple that's going to hold its shape, because you don't want your apples to turn into mush, then you lose the beautiful concentric circles that are on the top. So my favorite is Honeycrisp for this recipe, but a Granny Smith, an Ambrosia, a Spartan, any apple that holds its shape really well when baking is going to be a good choice for a tarte tatin. So we're going to start by peeling, coring, and quartering 4 apples. How's the peeling going, John?
Oh, there's some good stuff. There we go.
I hope you're not eating all of it.
I mean the peel.
Oh, you're eating the peel. Okay, we don't need that. So once I've peeled them, I'm going to cut them into quarters like this. And then I'm just going to cut out that core and put those into a pan here. Okay, let's move over to the stove and start making our caramel sauce. So I've preheated my oven to 400 degrees. And then we're going to start on the stove top. So I'm going to be using a cast iron skillet today. You want to use something that is oven proof. It doesn't have to be cast iron, but it's really nice if you can take it from the stove and put it right in the oven. If you don't have an oven proof skillet, you can transfer it to a pie pan, and that will work as well. Okay, so before I turn the stove on, I'm going to sprinkle into my pan 2/3 of a cup of granulated sugar. So you want to sprinkle it as evenly as you can, because we're not going to be stirring while we're making this caramel. So before I turn on my pan, I'm just going to shake it so it's nice and even. And then I am going to be adding 1/4 of a cup of water, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. So I'm going to mix those together, and I'm going to try to get all of the sugar wet. Okay, so we're going to turn our stove on to a medium heat. So mine has numbers. I'm going to turn it on to number 6. And the ticket to a nice caramel is you don't want to stir it. You don't want it to crystallize, okay? So we're just gonna let it sit here. We're gonna let it come up to temperature, and the sugar is going to melt. So you can see our caramel is starting to boil and bubble. That's really good, but as you can see, I have a hot spot right in the middle of my pan. So what I'm gonna do, instead of stirring it, is I'm just gonna pick this up and I'm gonna slowly swirl it around like this. And that's gonna move the sugar and the liquid, and it's going to make it brown evenly. And what we're looking for is for it to come to a nice golden brown color. You don't want it to become a dark brown, then it is going to be burnt and it's going to taste bitter. You're just looking for a nice golden color. So while our caramel is cooking, we're just going to get our pie dough ready for the top of our tarte tatin. So what I'm going to be using today is Davison farmhouse pie dough. This is the dough that we make by hand at the farm. This is the dough that we use for our pies at the farm. It is flaky, it is delicious, and that's what we're going to be using today. So when you buy this bag, it comes in 4 pieces. We just need to use 1 for this recipe. I'm just going to start by working it into a little bit of a circle, and then I'm just going to sprinkle just a little bit of flour on my board here, and we're going to start rolling. Okay, John, do you want to start? That's good. But we do not want to forget about our caramel. Never walk away while you've got caramel on the stove. So let's go back over to the stove just for a minute. Let's just stop rolling for a minute and take a look at how our caramel is doing. So now you can see that the whole pan is full of bubbles. That's really good. That's what we're looking for. But the bubbles are still white. They're not brown at all yet. And that's good. So we just need to let it cook a little bit longer. You can see that it's still a bit cool around this edge. So I'm going to give it another little swirl here, and we're just going to let that keep going. Let's go back to our dough and finish rolling that out. Oh, you're doing good. So we don't want it to be too thin, because this is actually going to be the bottom of our tart once we're done, and we want it to hold up. So I think that's actually about right. Let's go back to the stove and check on our caramel. So we can see now the bubbles are changing. They're getting a little bit bigger, and there actually is starting to be a little bit of a golden caramel color in here. Wonderful. So we're getting very close. We're probably a minute off. Sometimes when you swirl like this, you see there's actually more golden in there than you thought. So that's good. So that's probably going to be maybe 1 more minute. All told, it should be boiling for about 5 minutes. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. So a nice golden color. You don't want it to be too much darker than that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to be adding 1/4 of a cup of butter. Make sure it's real butter. And once I add the butter, you'll see it's going to foam up really quickly. Okay, don't walk away. You're going to want to stay here and swirl it around. And I'm also going to be adding 3/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon. So at this point, all we're trying to do is melt the butter and fully incorporate the cinnamon. Okay, so I'm happy with that caramel. So we're going to pour in our apples. And you're going to see when we add the apples that your caramel is going to kind of seize up a little bit. See, as I turn the apples, it's kind of in chunks. And you might think that you've gone too far and you've overcooked your caramel, but that's not true. In about 30 seconds here, the apples are going to release their juice and the caramel is going to relax and it's all going to come together really nicely. And I'm also just starting to cook the apples just a tiny bit. Okay, so between 3 and 5 minutes of cooking like this. Okay, let that keep cooking. You can see that the caramel is now relaxed. It's not like sticking all over the apples like it was at the beginning. So I think I'm ready here to add our pastry. Our apples, they're just starting to soften a tiny bit. I don't want them to just go to mush in the pan. They're gonna cook in the oven, but they're just starting to soften a little bit and our caramel is nice and loose and it's looking ready. So what I'm gonna do is take it off the heat and I'm gonna bring it over here to our pastry. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna arrange our apples so that they look nice when we flip over our Tarte Tatin. I want the cut side to be up so that the nice rounded side, this side, is going to be up after we flip it over. So our next step here is to put our pastry on top. So I'm just gonna fold the pastry over. I'm gonna lay it on here and then flip it back. And then working quite quickly, I'm going to take a clean spatula and I'm just going to tuck in the edges. It is okay if it is not looking perfect. That adds to the charm. So our oven is preheated to 400 degrees and I'm going to pop it in here and I'm going to bake it until the top is nice golden brown, about 30 minutes. Okay, so our Tarte Tatin has been in the oven for I think about 27, 28 minutes, just shy of 30 minutes. So let's check on it here. Stay back, John, okay? Yes, that is exactly what we're looking for. Golden brown crust, it's bubbling up around the edge a little bit. This is perfect. So instead of inverting it immediately, I'm just gonna let it sit here for about 10 minutes before we invert it onto our stand here, onto our dish. Okay, the moment of truth has come for our Tarte Tatin. We're gonna flip it over and see what we've got on the other side. So you're gonna wanna wear oven mitts and you're gonna just put your serving platter right on top and then you're just gonna quickly flip it over and pop it off. Beauty. Isn't that something? Okay, I see that we do have a little caramel spill here. We're gonna put a plate under there. So that was me rushing it a little bit. I maybe should have waited for 5 more minutes. But that is okay. We're still gonna have lots in our pie here. So that is how you make an apple Tarte Tatin. If you found this video helpful or enjoyable, hit that like button and subscribe for more videos.